So one of the things I've been getting asked about over the last couple of weeks since the COVID-19 thing started is the use of thermal cameras for like fever detection for entryways into buildings. Have you been getting any questions about this? Have you heard about this?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts? Because I have a pretty strong opinion on what I think is real and what I think isn't, and I'm sort of concerned about how it's being marketed. Um, we were approached. We're as Hanwha, we're a camera manufacturer, and we make thermal cameras and we make radiometry cameras. But the sensitivity level that's necessary to be able to detect human temperature, needs to be very, very accurate. Like we have a 5-degree kind of range that which would not work for human temperature detection, and we're a $60 billion company. I'm only aware of one company that makes a camera that can do that, but I'm seeing advertisements from 20 different brands and a whole bunch of different integrators that are talking about these solutions. So I'm concerned that there's a lot of snake oil sales happening with these fever detection type systems.
Right.
What are your?
Yeah, I mean, like when we first looked at it, that was my first opinion was like, that it's really not. I don't know what kind of value that's going to bring. Forget about the fact that the accuracy and the technical standpoint, but even starting with the value of checking people's temperatures. I don't know, what that's really going to do. The concern for me is sometimes with some of these features and kind of sales tactics, like you said, it's going to give maybe a false sense of security to people, thinking like, oh, this is great. There's this system, and it's just going to tell me if everybody's sick. When the reality is, like you said, how accurate it's going to be, and then on top of that, people can be walking around. In most cases, probably not have a fever, depending on what kind of symptoms, if they're asymptomatic or whatever. And this thing's not really going to, help them. But as a distributor, there's two sides. Like, I definitely like to sell on what I think and what we collectively, what DWG thinks makes the most sense for applications. But then there is that slippery slope where it's also, well, hey, what's hot in the market and what are people looking at? And then that takes you to, why are people looking at it? So, more recently, I've gotten some direct calls from integrators saying, hey, I have this potential project. They want to put in this solution for fever detection. So I'm like, all right, let me dig a little deeper. So what are they thinking? What are they trying to accomplish? Is it a matter of they want to pinpoint anyone that's sick and make sure they don't come into their location, in this case, a mall? Or is it, a little bit of marketing and that part of it?
Sure.
So, his answer was, I think it's more marketing to show customers that, hey, there's something happening. But there might be some benefits as well.
So I'm all for taking that proactive approach. And I think if we can establish solutions that work, that allow businesses to start to reopen again, I'm definitely all for that. I'm just concerned that the technology isn't quite there yet. To your point, are we going to create, on two fronts? One, are we going to create a false sense of security for people coming into a space? Well, they have this system, so I'm safe going there.
I'm good. Let me, get up on people.
Yeah, get right back into our old habits. And then on the B side, it's, are we creating an environment where integrators are going to sell this solution because it's easy to sell right now, because it's a hot request, regardless of whether or not it actually achieves the goal of the customer, and then we end up with a whole bunch of unhappy end users, right? I think as industry professionals, it should be our responsibility to coach and educate end users and prevent them from making, a bad purchase decision with some of these claims that I'm not sure are have been fully tested out.
Oh, let's think it through. Let's say the system, because I know with the reference, they have the black box reference. That's what it's called, right? The black box, I think, like that, or something. What is it called?
Well, there's a couple of different systems I saw out there. There's one called Fever, FEEVR. That's being pushed. by a number of different vendors. Invid is marketing a solution which I believe is a rebranded Hikvision solution.
I think it's Cinel, actually.
Is it Cinel? Okay. So,
but the way they from what I've seen is they use the thermal cameras, but they're also using like a reference that has like some kind of a base temperature.
Okay.
So it's not really detecting the temperature. I don't think in the person. It's combining like a heat amount that it picks up and combining that to a reference, and supposedly you can get within 0.2. So let's humor. Let's just like leave the technology argument on the side. Let's humor it for a second, and let's say it can, one way or another, detect people's temperature. Let's say all right, 98.2, 98.7, 100.2. If that was working, what do you think about that?
So if
you think that there's value there,
yeah, I think if the accuracy, if we could achieve that level of accuracy, then yes, I think there's value, because at the very least, you can eliminate, major outliers. So if somebody's in the space and you set a threshold to say 100 degrees, right? So if this person's temperature is exceeding 100 degrees, I want to light a light, ring a bell, lock a door, whatever the case may be. But that becomes, well, that's the whole next part of the argument. Exactly. Okay, now you found somebody. What do you do? Do you tackle them in the street? Like, what do you do?
It's interesting.
So that it almost opens up a whole nother Pandora's box of what is your response going to be?
Right.
Detection and then response. So, okay, we've detected that this person has issue. Do you pull them aside?
Right.
Now you have to kind of triage your entranceways, right? So I could see this making sense in a hospital, right? So you have a hospital.
Sure.
We're going to make controlled entranceways.
Right.
We're going to detect people. Okay, now if you are
100
plus.
Or get on a plane. Single lane entry.
Correct.
Yeah.
So then you can, and then in those environments, you have the authority to pull somebody aside.
Right.
But as a business owner with a retail space like you have, what are you going to do? If I came in and had at 100-degree temperature when I walked in the door today and the sensor went off, is Kevin going to tackle me in the hallway? Like,
right.
Now, where does your liability come into play as a business owner to stop somebody from coming into your space or restricting somebody's access?
Right.
So I think it creates a lot of questions as well as maybe answering a few.
Yeah. So I think that's like, owning a distribution company and then also owning a brand. And then you're thinking about different technologies to bring in. And then, of course, you want to make sure that you have all those answers. But then on the flip side, I'm looking at the market and a part of me is like, well, it doesn't matter what I think because this is happening one way or the other, whether I like it or not, whether I think it's ready or not. It's happening, and it's happening now. People are looking into it. People are buying it, and people are implementing it. So these questions are going to have to get answered, and they're going to have to get answered quickly. So, what I'm trying to do is, get my feet wet, bring some stuff in, test it, get to the point where I understand what technology is so that we can put our own, kind of sales and marketing, explanations and descriptions together to, do the right ethical approach that matches what we're selling, where, the concern is like some people won't do that.
Sure.
But then other than that, also, make sure we're open to it because, if I turn around and say, no, we're not dealing with that, one way or another, we're going to just basically get left behind.
Sure.
So I think it's going to have to be a compromise between vetting it properly, getting, the specs and what it can do performance down to the fact that where we can verbalize this clearly to customers and hopefully they can verbalize it to their end users and it can all be figured out. But on the other hand, not fighting the adaptation of it in the market because it's happening. Like that's what I'm seeing. A month ago I was like, oh, I don't know, they're marketing this. What are they trying to do? Make money off this pandemic? Those thoughts. But now, as we're starting to get calls and get a pulse on different companies throughout the country, and so the demand from some of their end users, like, it looks like this is happening. I think we're going to see it in malls. We're definitely going to see it in airplanes. When travel opens,
sure.
I picture a world where, hey, we can't, and maybe they will do like full virus panels and things like that down the road. Can get crazy as well. But I do see a theoretical world where it's like, hey man, you have 103 fever, see you later.
Yeah.
Get on this plane.
Sure.
I see that. I think that's reasonable. And I do see something like in malls, stadiums, things like that, where, even in crowd, and this, it can kind of feed off crowd analytics and things like that. Some of those technologies that we've already been used to selling and marketing.
Sure.
I can see it kind of blended into that suite of offering, and I think it's going to be in the mix. I think it's going to be there.
That's always a mistake
it's
I've
good
made.
to talk about.
Yeah, it's always a mistake I've made is I tend to paralysis by analysis, right?
Yes.
So is it better to put something out, put it into use, understand where it's strong, understand where it's weak, modify it, improve it, or, in public in real time using real life data, or wait and try to test something until it gets to the point where it's, perfect, right?
Yes.
And I think to your point, it's already going to be implemented, and it sounds to me like you may be of the opinion that get it out there, get it in use, learn it, understand it, apply it, and then we could always improve it.
Right.
But if we don't do anything, we're going to get way too far behind the curve.
Yeah, like if I was approached by a mall, let's say a mall called me directly, and I was a security integrator, and they said, "Hey, Sal, we want to put this solution in." I would want to. First thing I would say is like, "Hey, all right, I can definitely help you. I can definitely advise you. I don't have years of experience with this type of technology. I've never put a solution like this in before.
Sure.
I've seen it once.
Sure.
I don't really know how it's going to perform. If you want to put it in, it might be labeled as I'll work with you. It's pretty much beta.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, without a doubt.
We're going to put it in. Maybe we'll pick some zones, and we'll figure out some signage to display to kind of give customers some peace of mind. And then, let's be clear, though, that it's not going to be an instead of type of thing. Sure. Instead of social distancing, or instead of, whatever else, wearing a mask and anything like that. It's not an instead of, it's an additional supplement, and anything that we can get out of it is a bonus.
Sure.
But I think get it in there, kind of work out some of the kinks with placement and things like that. And I think it's not going to hurt as long as it's positioned properly.
I like your idea of marketing it as a beta, because I think that's been part of what I haven't liked about what I've seen with people marketing the solutions today, is that they're marketing it in a way that we've done this already.
Yes.
We've solved this problem. Yep. And I don't think that's true. I love the idea of saying, hey, this is new technology. We're in a new world. We're having an unprecedented time, and we need to come up with creative solutions, and we're going to apply this because we think it may be effective. But marketing it as we're all learning together. Right. We're going to put this solution together. It's going to cost money for everybody's time and to buy products and to put a solution together. But it's going to be a learning experience for all parties involved. And we're taking the most proactive steps we can to make our facilities safer and to help our clients make their buildings safer. But we're all under the understanding that this is not a packaged, finished solution that we've all been selling and using for a decade.
Right, because you have the liability concerns. Sure. And you just don't want to, if you're protective of your name and protective of your company, you don't want to, oversell something. But the truth of the matter is, just like any other new technology that's come into the industry, you're always going to have that whatever percent of companies that's how they operate. That's how they, kind of capitalize on things. But hopefully the trend will be responsibility and explaining things the right way. And then, beta, maybe pilot program, early adopter, that type of mentality, I think, has to be communicated hand in hand with any marketing piece.
Agreed. So I think for us, one of the things that we need to do is collectively as industry professionals, we need to find a handful of those manufacturers that we trust that are willing to work with us on a beta type program, and find a willing end user so that we can deploy a solution like this and test it, so we can build our skill set, build our confidence in what these solutions are capable of doing, with the hopes that if we can deploy them on larger scales, we can help reopen businesses, we can help get the economy back on track, and we can help improve the safety of everybody that's coming into our clients.
Right. Absolutely.
Locations.
Yep. I think, I was saying, like, I've seen this happen with other technology. Just kind of like my personal experience with this type of thing in general, with other new features or technologies that have come out throughout the past, 15 years. What happens is we have this line card with all these different brands, and then we have different companies that, they have marketing departments, and these marketing departments want to create buzz for their product. So they're going to try to make things seem more excited or more magical. And there is some danger involved, but that's part of the value that we offer as DWG is when we get a call from a dealer who's trying to sell something, we try to kind of offset and make heads or tails of some of the marketing things. And we try to translate something where like, hey, yeah, just keep in mind, that spec sheet, that graphic was made by a marketing company. So that WDR is not going to be quite as magical as, the images making it look.
Sure.
I think, so some of those core principles for us, that we would just take that same strategy and apply it to this. We would say, hey, if they think that this is going to be the end all, like, reopen right now, like nothing happened, you're going to probably, get yourself in trouble. But if you, on the kind of understanding that, hey, we're going to put this out there. We're going to test the waters with it, work out the kinks. We'll figure it out together. It's good to be ahead of the curve. It's good for your mall or your business to show that you're being proactive and you're trying to figure things out. I think then that might be an okay track to get onto.
Yeah, I agree. So what other things, beyond the fever detection and the thermal, what other things can we, from a technology standpoint, leverage to continue all the steps that all the CDC and all these organizations have asked to do, things like touchless?
Right.
Are there access control options that are out there that you've been working with that can help limit contact with entranceways and things like that?
Yeah, touchless, motionless, sensitivity. I think a lot of technology is there. It's a matter of putting it all together and making it work. But I also think something like this, a pandemic of this scale, is a motivator. So where there's been, potential features and ways to do things. Just go back to video analytics for a second. You see a lot of these video analytics features, and they're kind of, in some cases, optional add-ons, or some cases they're built into this enterprise software, whether it's Milestone or Genetec and the third-party cloud connections. They're not necessarily being used, or they're like, that would be nice, that's cool, but they don't really see it. But I think now when you look at things like loitering prevention, crowd detection, line crossing, you can directly see how this technology would give clear ROI to businesses. And I think you'll even, wouldn't surprise me if you start seeing this in some of their marketing or their commercials. Like, I don't know, maybe, a Kohl's commercial is now showing some of the technology that they're putting in place. Or maybe when you walk into Kohl's, when it reopens, they're going to show a video loop in and you're already hearing it, some of the announcements, but you'll also see video of kind of, advising customers, hey, welcome back. We're going to use this for our benefit. These are some technologies that we have in place. And this is what we're doing. I think, there's a direct ROI basically for these technologies. I think it's going to force things to happen quickly.
I hadn't considered the video analytic aspect, and that's interesting. So within some cameras that I represent, we have something called queue line management. And essentially it's used, the general principal use of it has been traditionally, hey, we're monitoring a line of folks that are going to registers, for example. And if you get too many people in that space, we need to open another register.
Right.
But I'm wondering if we can use it for almost the exact opposite and say, we're going to monitor this space and ensure that we don't have too many people in that queue, or that we can potentially help manage the distance. When we talk about 6 foot distancing, social distancing in the queue, could the analytic that we already have today be adjusted or configured in such a way that we can help keep people or inform people that they're not distancing enough when they're waiting in line?
Absolutely.
Because I think the other problem too is you have a social problem and you have a technology problem. So the technology problem we can work on it. But I've been in situations already where you're being asked to social distance and other folks are not kind of following along with those principles, and it potentially creates conflict, right? So if the system were automated, where it's not me telling you, hey, back up, it's the system saying, please space out. Please follow the 6 foot distancing rules. And what have you? Could an automated system also help prevent negative interactions
conflict
between two people online?
Right.
Yeah. That's
for sure.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think once it becomes more normalized, you're gonna get less pushback on things. Sure. Like I remember like 6 weeks ago, I was going into Leslie Pool Supplies, and my wife said, I was getting my pool, was how to get some stuff. This was before everything was closed down, but I put a mask on before I went in. Yeah. I remember like I was the only one in there wearing a mask, and the looks I got. Now you have to wear a mask now. And if you didn't wear a mask, you get that same look. Sure. I think as things become more normalized and people kind of start understanding things and they can kind of, see where it's going and why things are happening, then people will be more cooperative and I think less, argumentative on certain things. But with the analytics point that you were making, as far as like, tweaking some of those analytics to use for good, I think, you could have the direct communication as a result of it. But I think what you'll also see is, business advisors looking at some of these things, analytics, and then figuring out, well, hey, why are so many people crowding up there? Why is this happening? Why is that happening? And they'll probably find ways to restructure the store or, kind of more subtle things that they can do to eliminate the problem as well.
It's funny because it's flipping all those things on their head, right?
Yes.
Because we used to do, we do heat mapping. And for those that don't know, the heat map is not temperature, it's activity in a space. So same idea would be, well, we want to put our high attractive models in a place where people congregate, right? But now we're trying to do the exact opposite of that. True. So how do we still maintain our retail spaces to keep the flow moving the way we want it, but keeping people separate enough that we can follow all the social distancing rules? Because it seems to me, everything I've seen, that this social distancing thing might take, we might be doing this for the next year. Yeah. Even if it's just good practice. Right. And frankly, I don't mind having a little extra space everywhere I go. So I'm okay with the idea.
Yeah, there's no shame in being a germaphobe.
But managing a retail space has got to be very challenging. I mean, you have a retail space here, so it's you want to put your products in a place where the most folks are gonna see it. But do we want to get to a point where people are congregating around a certain area? And can we design spaces that allow for a better flow and still put our products in a place that people can see?
Yep, challenging times, I think, definitely fuels innovation. And where there's a will, there's a way. And right now, there's a problem that needs to be solved for, in many cases, survival of businesses. So they're going to innovate. They're going to have to figure things out. And it's going to be a matter of people working together, the marketing team working with the security team, and customers working with vendors, and and all of that.
Customers working with other customers and cooperating.
Absolutely. Well, that's a whole nother topic. But like people are worried about government controlling us and whatnot. I think, really we don't need government to control us as long as we can communicate and use common sense. And we shouldn't need government to control us. Exactly. You really shouldn't need rules in a supermarket. That should, to me, that'd be like, hey, like you don't need to stand up on me. Just what's the difference? We're going to the same place anyway. You're gonna go after me. So, and then just like.